All right, I'm gonna get the link out there.
Okay.
So if you just want to talk for a sec.
Well, I'm sure everyone will come in and say, "Ew, is this Alex?" Nasty. What is this?
That's sick stuff.
That's disgusting, dude. What the fuck is that?
I'm sorry I had such a negative reaction to it.
It's fine. It's just really funny. It's very, like, out of all the drawings.
Well, it's cause he looks like a real little boy right there, and I mean, sure,
I
it
mean,
could
like,
just be
he's like
him when he's younger,
11.
but
He's like 11 when he triggers or whatever.
I,
And
I suppose you're right. Yeah, it could be him at
or
11.
he's like 10 or 11 years old or
Yeah.
some shit. Um, I love driving to work as usual. Hello, 2 plus 4 times 5.
Damn.
I love there's this thing in Ward or whatever at one point where Victoria is like, oh, most people are, she basically says all people trigger between the ages of 13 and 30, but there are some exceptions on either side. And I'm like, Victoria, you know, like 20 people who triggered before they were 13. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's crazy.
Especially because she's a second gen or whatever. Like, they're more likely to trigger earlier, right? Didn't Amy trigger when she was like, I don't know, maybe she was like 13 or 14, right?
Amy triggered
Um,
after Victoria because it was to heal her after a super fight.
oh,
She
okay.
got
I
injured.
had always assumed that Amy triggered first because Victoria's always like, I'm the only one who doesn't have powers in my family.
Well,
But
you know,
clearly that wasn't
the
exactly true.
only one.
Hello, hello.
Hi, Vale. Hi, Greg. Um,
She was quoting from a textbook, which allows for any misinformation to be presented. I know, it just seems like she wouldn't have said that out loud.
yeah.
It was like right when she was meeting a group of people who had all triggered like before middle school too, and
Yeah,
she
because
was
that
like,
was
"Man,
before
that's crazy."
the major malfunctions introduction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was like, "This is crazy." Maybe they're child triggers. They're like it's like all three of them.
Right.
But yeah, the I just think it's funny that like Victoria will like spew misinformation that she like anecdotally can disprove.
Yeah.
Um, cool.
Um, I was hoping that because we were on an alternate day, that perhaps 2 plus 4 times 5 wouldn't have worked, but it did not work out. Um,
Didn't work out.
but yeah. So, as the audience participation reminder, it's do you think Alex's actions in this chapter are justified? And then for themes, Vale says 22 works too much. Yeah, too much work. But the themes, I don't know. We didn't write anything down, but uh, doing bad stuff to people.
Yeah, doing bad stuff to people is doing good stuff to people when you're a bad person even better than if you're a good person. That's my theme for the chapter.
Mm-mm. Gotcha.
Yeah. Listen, we stan Alec here, and by we I mean me, but I will try to be harder on him during this chapter.
I try to strike a middle ground where I pretend that if you were listening to the episode, you wouldn't be upset with the things that I'm saying, and yet I'm not presenting him as quite as flowery as you.
Oh my gosh. Vale said the primary theme is obviously how to determine how to determine completely justified actions. Exactly. We can just get right into the chapter then.
Yeah.
So it starts out in the scene where Regent was like, Shadow Stalker, I'm letting you go. But it turns out he did not actually let Shadow Stalker go. He uses his superior acting skills to pretend to be the real Shadow Stalker. And he like emulates her. Uh, gaining back her control and like aiming her crossbow at him and then like him taking over again. So we're walked through the same like spiel that Regent had given to Shadowstalker about how he'll take over her body if he ever gets in range of her in the future, and she'd better leave town. And he makes Shadowstalker not in agreement, and he can feel her like start panicking as she realizes that he's not letting her go.
Hmm.
And this is like all a show for his teammates. So Regent marches Shadowstalker out of the building, and he has her running and using her power. And he thinks to herself that like she's so in shape that the running is kind of actually enjoyable, which is really funny because it's like he knows that if he were more in shape, that like fighting and running would be more fun, but he's not gonna put in that work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think actually something that is a real big character point about him, um, he emphasizes here. He just straight up says that he wants to minimize like input and maximize output on like everything. He only wants to do stuff he's already good at, and like um, so yeah, like that's of course the same thing. He would never take the time to get good at running. No.
No, never. Vale said, my first time reading this as a pristine, innocent reader who still thought Taylor was perfect. This chapter was fist pumping joy to read. I mean, I agree. I think that this chapter, you're like, hell yeah, like he's getting like revenge on Sophia, and like Taylor never needs to know, so like she wasn't involved in it or whatever. Um, yeah, so um, he kind of notes that the fighting had been even better than the running because her muscle memory for fighting and violence is so good, that like her body basically just like took care of it on its own. And he says he loves maximum
Oh,
reward
whoops.
for minimum effort. That's what that's the
Yeah.
quote. Um,
Sorry for
so
preempting that. I just thought it was so important that yeah.
no,
Anyway.
it's fine. It's great. Um, he feels like his hands-off personality around his team is suiting him perfectly at this moment, because he just needs to focus on his control of Shadow Stalker. Because when he's with the group, he doesn't really say or do anything. He just is kind of leans around and nods. Um, he thinks it's almost not worth the trouble, but having a body with the different emotions and physical sensations is like basically drugs to him. He's like, "Oh, there's no better high than having feelings."
Yeah, but
Um,
I also find it funny that he's like, oh, it's not worth the trouble. He continues to do this thing.
I know. He's so dramatic. Alec wonders if the dullness of his own emotions and experiences are due to his father, like oversaturating him with his emotion power, or if it's actually due to his power oversaturating his own experiences. Um, I pulled a quote here. He could be two, three, or four people at the same time, feeling what they felt. By the time he was a teenager, he'd experienced every kind of drug in someone else's body and slept with himself as various boys and girls. How was being just ordinary Alex supposed to compare? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Are you telling me Alec is evil?
I
Oh my
really
gosh.
I was so dumb because I like that was me reading this chapter. I'm like, wait, this sounds like
Wait,
Alex really evil.
he's actually an evil person. Alec, come on.
Oh no.
Um, and it's his bi reveal too, all in one, all wrapped in one.
Well, that's what when as we know, when you come out as bi, you're also coming out as evil.
You're also coming out as evil. Um, 2 + 4 × 5 says my answer to audience participation question. It was partly justified, though Alec took it too far. Vale said after many rereads, I am of a fairly firm opinion that he almost perfectly judged the level of effort required to accomplish his goal. Yes. Um, so it's like a reveal or whatever that Alec sexually assaulted people for shits and giggles.
Mm-hmm.
And we know he's not been using his power anymore, so like who knows? He doesn't like talk about how he feels about those things. So it seems like he doesn't really feel much of anything about it.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he has any like regrets, I guess,
Yeah.
or any
Um
surface level ones, because he's clearly like very distant from his own emotions, because he's like doing things and kind of being like the whole I don't need these keeps Shadowstalker. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Um So, Regent describes Shadowstalker as being passionate in her emotions, which I thought was like an interesting characterization. And I totally agree. She's very she's very passionate in her own emotions. Um, he doesn't really experience the emotions of people he controls, but like he can feel the effects on their bodies. And he kind of describes it as a really immersive movie. Um, so, like he's not feeling her anger, but he feels the body's effect of her anger and like the adrenaline rushing through her and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so Regent uh halts their log run on the roof of a gas station, and he's somewhat in awe of Shadowstalker's body's abilities. He kind of like starts like feeling her up a little bit, but it's like clearly non-sexual. He's just like a little freak. Um and Shadowstalker does have a visceral reaction to this
Yeah.
because like of course you would. So he murmurs aloud to her that he almost forgot she was in there and smirks like uh for her enjoyment. And it's like obviously a scare tactic. He definitely didn't forget that she was in there. Um, he starts to give her another speech, and this time it's real. And he lets her know that he can feel her emotions like a really good polygraph test, and he knows that she's way too pissed to leave town if he lets her go.
Hmm.
What did Vale said? The only time he really expresses any emotions is when he enjoys others' emotions, except when he sees the text. His little moment was probably a normal person's equivalent of fury.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think we may have missed Greg's comment earlier saying it isn't hard to pretend to be the real Shadowstalker, just leap immediately to violence.
yeah, for sure. Um, so Regent lets Shadowstalker know that he's going to be dealing with this situation without his teammates' input or help. He starts looking through her supplies and throwing anything he doesn't want off the roof. He grabs her two cell phones, one old and scuffed, and one like a really like a smartphone that hasn't been released to the public yet. And although he's not as good at figuring out passwords as Lisa, he is able to basically like default to muscle memory for like short pin codes and stuff. So he's able to get into her phone with that. Um, I just pulled this quote. Contacts, he murmured, pressing a button. Weld, clock blocker, Vista, Flechette, Kidwin, boring. And then, like the people that could actually like ruin Shadowstalker's life, he's like, no, 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 we gotta dig deeper. Um, So he finds an Emma Barnes listed as the most recently called. We got to see that call of her up on the rooftop during Shadowstalker's chapter. And looking at the old phone, he realizes Emma is in those contacts as well, and he can feel Sophia getting a little bit triggered. So he spends a bit of time reading through all of her texts, and then he goes and looks at her quote unquote saved texts. I'm sure this was a thing
It was
in
because like
yeah.
I remember Nadra's phone. My friend. Shit, I shouldn't. Um, my friend's phone.
Doc.
They had to delete texts all the time because it was constantly running out of memory,
Mhm.
just all the time, and it's just
And then
like
they would like
just text
save some of
messages.
them.
Yeah,
Like you can. flag them or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever.
you'd have to like flag them to save them because otherwise they'd
Okay.
either auto delete or like you'd have to be like constantly going through like deleting a bunch of stuff. Cuz
Yeah.
like the phones were just all shitty. And this is
Yeah.
before MMS was really a thing, so they weren't sending pictures, you know?
Yeah, and it seems like that he's looking at her older phone now, which is like the shitty one. Uh Sigma says it's still a thing depending on service. I have ev every text I've ever sent, but that's because Google does that by default. Yeah. So he goes and looks through her saved messages, and Regent is intrigued by whatever he's finding and puts in the immense effort to go find the original discussions of the saved messages. It's just like a fun note that whenever Regent has to do something, he's like, oh, I guess like I'll put in all of my energy to do this.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
like it's not that hard to scroll through messages. Okay, Regent, Jesus. Um,
You know what I just thought
so
of though? I didn't understand. Can he directly see through her eyes? Is that part of
yeah,
it? Okay.
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure because like he's reading the text, and I always thought like he must be able to see through her eyes. It just didn't. I didn't know if there was a moment when it said that.
No, I think he just has like full like body control as if he's her.
Mm-mm-mm.
Um, Vale says if you think texts are bad, just think what it was like when phones could only fax. Yeah. Um, okay. Do you want to be Sophia or Emma?
I'm more of a Sophia type, I think,
Okay, okay.
and you're
So
more of an
the
Emma.
messages are damning. Yeah, I'm more of an Emma. The messages are damning, confirming Alex's suspicions that Sophia and Emma are Taylor's bullies.
Sophia. Or should we read the names or not?
No, no
Okay,
names.
not the names. Okay. What did you say to make her cry? That was awesome. Blew my mind.
Saved message. Crying herself to sleep for a week. She told me she did that after her mommy died.
You are so evil.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I use that one on her? Saving that one for posterity. BT dub.
Won't have same bite to it. Brilliant bit was the surprise, the slow realization about what I meant.
Teach me, O master.
Lol. Won't be as good, but I was thinking of that day. Think I remember music we were listening to when she got the phone call about her mom. We should wait a while and then see if she cries again if we play it in hallways or before class.
And we can't get in trouble for just listening to music.
Yeah,
Can't believe you were her friend.
she was lame, but not depressing and lame at same time. So funny. I don't know. It's just them, like Sophia saving the message and Emma like being like, man, I've been thinking back and I think I remember the song that was playing. Like they're both so obsessed with Taylor.
And they're like such pieces
Um,
of shit. I mean, like,
and
it's
it's just
like
such a huge
ridiculous.
part of their lives. It's ridiculous, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like their main hobby.
Yeah, yeah,
They're
it's
just such
true.
fucks.
And so Regent reads this and he's like, very interesting. And he tries to feel bad for Taylor, but he can't. And then he feels bad that he can't feel bad. And then he's like, ugh, thanks, Dad. So I think, I don't know, like Regent's emotions are so like interesting because he kind of feels the emotion through proxy of like whatever he feels like he should be experiencing. It obviously isn't as potent, but he's like, I should be happy right now. I should have empathy right now. So I'm gonna do the actions that somebody with empathy would do, but he like can't quite pull it off because it's not genuine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, Let's see. Vale said, if you think ticks are bad. Oh, Sigma said they both spend way too much time thinking about this shit. Yeah, Vale said they are like worm fans who don't like Taylor and post on Reddit. That sounded funnier in my head. No, that is funny.
No, it's good.
I would love to see these worm fans who don't like Taylor. I just can't imagine reading the whole book and being like, I hate the main character.
A lot of people I know when they read it and they're done, and I just go like, who is your favorite character? Like a lot of them don't even think about it; they just say Taylor like right away, or some of them
Yeah,
will say
because
Skitter.
Taylor slaps.
Yeah.
Um, Regent says, "You're not a nice person." He spoke to Sophia with a note of irony in his voice. He could feel her try to respond. So, Regent starts rattling off this all the schools in town, and he stops on Winslow when Sophia has like an emotional reaction. So he goes and finds all the teachers' contacts on the school website and begins addressing an email to them, and he attaches the texts to the message. Alec finds this kind of menial task incredibly unpleasant, but it's worth it for the buildup of Sophia's emotions. Like during his boredom, he's kind of like still able to fight through. So he hovers his finger over the send button, and then he's like, nah, and he gets that wave of relief from Sophia. So he instead just adds the emails of the Brockton Bay Police and then sends them a message. And he
I
gives
think
a
he
very
even
unhinged
changes the
laugh.
message at the end. He says adding the police so that something happens as like
Yeah,
a threat, you know?
yeah. It's definitely like a Karen moment.
Yeah.
They definitely think that this is some like mom character that found the cell phone. Vale says the email is so wonderful. Anything and everything else aside, the email is great. I totally agree.
Yeah, I mean the
Um,
email is lit because it's just like exposing the actions.
yeah, and it is exactly what Alec loves. It's minimum effort for maximum reward. Like that really was not difficult, and it does like set up Sophia to be super fucked. Um, He should have probably included. Oh no, he couldn't like reveal her secret identity. I was gonna say he should have probably included like some of the PRT people, but like he obviously can't do. That's against the rules, the unwritten rules.
Yeah. I think I think that it would be bad uh for his rep, like even worse than it, like it would just be an additional like thing,
Mhm.
because they already kind of think Tattletale revealed the Empire 88. Like people continue to have that perception for a while, like,
Yeah,
and I mean like post Worm. So
that's true. Um, so he and Shadowstalker head off to walk along the city as they make a call to Emma, who graciously reminds them that it's 3 a.m. This better be important. Regent apologizes, but both he and Sophia aren't great at sounding genuine, so he like has to do it a couple times to make himself not sound sarcastic because it's like his voice plus Shadow Stalker's like muscle memory, which I just think is interesting. Um, so asks what's going on and that she was worried when Sophia never called her back, and now Sophia's acting weird. So Sophia begins professing her love to Emma, saying that she was just jealous of Taylor this whole time, and Emma like doesn't take it seriously at all, and she's like, "Grow up, Sophia," and then she hangs up on her. So like this first prank total win, second prank total fail. uh, they're both at a 1-to-1.
yeah,
Um,
I think he probably would have like Regent as burgeoning good villain
mhm,
would do the email and then run her off across the city and then release her just in a way where she has no idea where they are.
mhm.
Um, but with all the implied threat of I'll retake over you if you don't leave the city. And then I think he could have been truly maximum for minimum. I think he would have won, but he pushed his
Yeah,
luck over and over.
I think he wants to have a little bit of fun.
Yeah, no, he
Um,
needs that because it's that addiction thing plus the like maybe revenge for Taylor thing. As a
yeah, definitely
justification.
revenge for Taylor. We'll talk about their romance at the end of this. Regent pulls up Sophia's Maps app and finds a location that she has a reaction to. So they arrive in this residential area, and it seems like it's like a either lower middle class or upper lower class situation. Like it's not like falling apart like some of the city is, but it's not like a gray area. He walks right into the house and that's marked on her map, and there's a young man in there that calls for his mom, and the mom enters with a 4-year-old in her arms, and she's like, you kids, get out of here. So the boy's name is Terry. I don't think they mentioned the 4-year-old's name.
I don't
Um,
think so.
So Terry passes Shadow Stalker and Regent says, "Chill, bro." Which is a goofy reaction because this leads him to know that it's Sophia, and I'm assuming it's because he recognizes her voice, but I think it's funnier to be like, "Oh, somebody called me bro. It must be my sister." Um, but this is clearly a surprise. He didn't know that Sophia was a superhero. Ooh. So great job breaking more unwritten rules. He should have just put the PRT on that email. Um,
Yeah,
the mom is
it's going
pissed
downhill
and
fast. Because that's
yeah,
why I was thinking like the problem is that like I think he kind of maybe sells it as because the way that Dennis will talk about this later is that
mhm.
Sophia tried to kill herself, not that Regent made her take these actions.
Yeah, like nobody believes if she tells them, like nobody believes Sophia.
Like it really
Um,
seems like that's the official story is that this was just an emotional outburst and it wasn't caused by Regent, which to me is insane because like why wouldn't you think Regent is going to do that after he did the I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it just seemed like too in line with how they view
Sophia
Sophia,
already.
like flipping out and like going too far on things. I don't know.
I'd use a thinker to clarify. I don't know. They don't
I
give
think
her the
I
benefit
think
of
they
the
honestly just don't care that much. They're
yeah.
like, Sophia's been breached, like we don't want her around here anymore. We'll just throw her away. Um, the brother is like
Well, because that's the
shook.
thing is she really does kind of get discarded after this because she's
Yeah,
not
she
useful
really
anymore.
does.
And it's crazy to me that they've put in all this effort up to now just for this because it's like they could ship her across the country and have her still be on probationary whatever in California or whatever.
Mhm.
So I don't know, but they just let her rot because it is very it's another one of the like people are always falling through the cracks and getting like stepped on by institutions.
Yeah,
Even
and as far
Sophia.
as I understand, like it maybe was Pago like pulling a lot of the strings to like keep Sophia like out of hot water. And
Yeah.
so yeah, like once Pago is like it's like out of her realm to like do anything, then yeah, the system totally just fucks her over. I mean, I don't know if it fucks her over, but it totally fucks her.
Right, and it's like there's obviously tons of ideas that like she still deserves to be in jail, and that for like other stuff that she's done, and that is what it is. But it's just like in this case, she's definitely being put away for something that she like didn't do essentially.
Yeah.
But
Um, so Sophia's mom is pretty pissed. She's like, "We had a deal. Your siblings were not to know about the Cape thing." And she starts like going on a rant about the glorification of violence, but is stopped short when Sophia lets out a yawn. Um, And Regent's like, it was a very real yawn, but he obviously is like not invested in this situation.
Yeah.
Um, so she slaps Sophia's mask from out of her hands, and Sophia is still evading. And the mom notices that the crossbow she's fiddling with is the lethal kind, not the, non-lethal kind that was obviously like part of the deal with the PRT that like Sophia wouldn't be able to enact violence. Greg,
Yeah, because her
so
biggest complaint is the violence of the job.
yeah. Greg said, I think it's because Sophia herself tells them that, and yeah, they don't care enough to dig deeper. Vale says, I think the PRT knows exactly what happened and wants her gone with minimal public discourse. Well, there's also the fallout from the email at Complicants burying the truth. And then Vale says, I don't agree with her getting put away for something she didn't do. She is on zero chances probation. The email shows a multi-year ongoing bullying campaign in school with the police notified. Just my view. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I
it's like
definitely.
she like does deserve to be in prison, but honestly, it's like it's weird because it's like yeah, I think she deserves to be in prison, but I don't agree with like the current prison system. Like,
Yeah, that's
I
what I
think
was gonna
that,
say. It's like I'm so anti-prison that I'm
yeah,
like we
I
just need
think
to
that
move
if,
Sophia around a little bit. We need to
I
figure
think
out
that
a
if
way
the,
to integrate her back into society.
yeah, I think if if there, whatever prison she was in was like focused on rehabilitation, but it's definitely not. It's just basically people storage. So, yeah,
Yeah, even the
poor
place,
Sophia.
like everywhere we see, like all the different jails in this are essentially people storage. Like there's hardly ever, except actually, you know what? At the beginning of Ward, we definitely see people who kind of just are under house arrest and live a decent
Yeah,
life.
yeah. When everything goes, like when the societal structure goes up, then yeah, there's definitely like more forgiving prison systems that work out for more people. Vale said, sadly, almost everyone in Worm deserves to be in prison. Miss Militia is the only one left. Um, oh my gosh, I guess so. Listen, Dragon does nothing wrong.
What about
Dragon
Dennis?
and Miss
I don't think
Militia.
Dennis kills anybody.
He probably doesn't kill anybody, but he's ginger. So like,
Oh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
time
And all
frozen
it took
while
was the world
ginger.
ending.
That's
So the mom like kind of starts flipping out and she's like, I work two jobs for you kids. I come into the office every time you get reprimanded. I pulled this quote because we know that's not true, and I don't think that that's the mom's fault. I think the PRT probably hid whatever reprimand that Sophia just got from Taylor or whatever so that they could deal with it themselves. Would you agree with that?
yeah, that sounds like a genuine statement, and like I guess Regent doesn't have the knowledge to push back on that, even if it weren't true.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't get like some reaction like of offense, so it just seems from our view like that is like yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like bad, somewhat bad for the mom because like I think that she doesn't know how bad like Sophia's situation is. Vale said Dennis sides with the Undersiders in a car trip. It goes on his permanent record and thus he is jailed. That's true.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was a crazy car trip. I love that stupid scene. Um s- Regent tells her, okay, Regent as Sophia says that she's being boring and the mom slaps them. Regent stands up and aims the crossbow at her, says she doesn't have the slightest idea of what she goes through. Sophia's mom asks if she's talking about Stephen, and Sophia has a visceral reaction. Regent heads up to Sophia's room, stopping in to grab an extension cord along the way. I wonder what we're going to do with that extension cord.
Oh my god.
It's Chekhov's extension cord. Um,
That's the famous writing technique.
Yeah, so in Sophia's room, Regent starts looking through her things. There's like pictures of Sophia and Emma, or with her family. And in the family photos, there's a man cut out of them, that, you could just like see the side of him or his arms. And Regent correctly identifies him to be Stephen. Regent comments that Sophia sure rose above whatever Stephen did, what with all the bullying and violence and moiter. Um,
He does
he
love that
says
last
that,
one.
yeah, he doesn't know about the murder, but Sophia sure does. Um, and he says that he and they are alike. They're both arrogant assholes, but at least Alec admits it and doesn't pretend that he's a good person. Uh, which is fair, I think. I don't know. Um, So he lets her know that everything he's done so far has been with a goal in mind, and he proceeds to write a suicide note in Sophia's handwriting.
Pretty
Uh,
dark.
what did what did Vale say? Did we ever get clarity on Steven? I always think of it when we reread here and never figured out. I mean, it seems to me like it's probably like it was mental abuse because think about the way that like Sophia wants to toy with other people. Um, I mean, it's probably something similar.
Yeah, it seems like cyclical abuse. Like her whole thing is like this really. It seems like someone who had like maybe been like emotionally abusive whenever her mom was not there, and then
Hmm.
like sort of faked one side of himself for Sophia's mom, and
Hmm.
then was more his real self, an abusive self, with Sophia.
Yeah.
That could be it. I don't know.
And you can imagine how triggering this situation could be for Sophia as well, because like feeling like out of control of herself and like of people's perspectives of her and stuff, because that's what I kind of assume was going on. Like, like gaslighting or stuff, or like the mom would come around and she'd be like, Steven did this, and he'd be like, Sophia's crazy. Um,
Yeah, and I
but
mean,
yeah.
there's kind of this other thing, and I mean that it makes it all the worse when it happens to her again with her not being believed here, but
Hmm.
but it is it's very parahuman, so that's one thing. But she and Taylor both have this extreme aversion to being controlled. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, can't
Yeah.
deal.
Which is like probably, I mean, it kind of has to do with her power. Like she can just kind of slip past anyone or anything if she really needs to.
Hmm.
Different than Taylor, where her power is just actively having control over things.
Yeah, they both have a different relationship to it, but I just thought it was an interesting overlap between the two characters.
Yeah.
And, like, it's something that even thinking about it happening to Sophia, like, clearly disturbs Taylor.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Here's our regent suicide note. I thought I could manage. I'm too angry, too lonely. I hate myself for what I'm doing, hurting people. I hurt my mom. I hurt my classmates as Sophia. I hurt people as Shadow Stalker, and I hate at myself for enjoying it. I thought I could manage it. I had Emma. She had my back, except she had turned me down. I loved her, really loved her. And when I confessed, she turned me away, acted like it was a joke. This is the right thing to do. I won't be able to hurt anyone anymore. I don't know, just him like still going after the like I'm in love with Emma angle is like, well, I
well,
don't
but
think that Emma's gonna fall for this.
the thing is, Emma doesn't have to fall for it. Like,
No, it's just everyone else.
yeah, and like also, what if 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 he had killed Sophia, then like
Mhm.
I think Emma might have believed like, oh, I was like dismissing this, but it was like literally written in the note
Yeah.
because like the PRT is not going to publicize that Regent did this. Like
No, no,
they
no.
just no, that's not happening.
Vale said it's so angsty. Yeah, for sure. Uh, So he Regis starts laughing as Sophia starts to freak out. He does a lot of maniacal laughter in this chapter. Um, he scatters pictures of burned face Emma around the note and then like lays an arrow on the papers. And he's like, very edgy, perfect. And he begins to set up a
This is what a
noose for
teen would do.
yeah, this is what teenagers do. Um, he begins to set up a noose for Sophia using the extension cord, and he has to watch a YouTube video for like a step by step, which I think is really funny.
I hope
Um,
it's either completely dry or has some sort of, mid 2000s equivalent of crawling in my skin playing.
oh my gosh. And like I didn't even write it down here, but he like lubes up the extension cord and that is I don't know. He was like, I need to make sure this is slippery enough so it works.
Yeah.
Um, here's a quote I pulled here. Here's the $1,000 question he mused as he began following the steps outlined in the video, putting the knot together. Will your boss tell your mom what happened with me controlling you? If she keeps her mouth shut, well, this paints a pretty ugly picture, doesn't it? A tear rolled down his cheek. He scoffed a little, blinked the tear out of her eyes. But if she does tell, if she lets mommy know, then shit hits the fan. It looks pretty fucking bad for her. And if word gets out, it's as bad as it gets for public relations. Scary, dangerous parahumans. Not just lives at risk, but you could be controlled. Ooh, scary. No one would ever be able to trust their coworkers or neighbors. It's the kind of stuff they want to keep quiet. Looks bad for me, sure, but you saw the fight earlier. It's not like you guys are that big of a threat. Like I said, I'm arrogant that way. Then he plugs in the extension cord and stands on top of the chair, with her head inside the noose. Um, do you want to read this quote here?
Sure.
It's near the bottom.
Here.
Yeah.
He gave her enough control to speak, but retained control of her arms, legs, so she couldn't escape, and held her diaphragm so she couldn't draw in enough air to scream for help. Why? She breathed. You fucked with my teammate. He shrugged her shoulder. Gru, I. He didn't let her finish. I don't know if I care all that much, but it's the sort of thing that I'll do because it feels like I should. Dunno. There's also the fact that you're dangerous, and you've outlived your usefulness, so unless you can give me a convincing reason.
This was all for Taylor? Oh my God. It's like he's in love with her or something. I don't know.
3 hearts. That's several.
It's just, do you think would he do the same for Gru if like like somebody had been like fucking over Gru like this? I feel like he would. But listen, Regent's just kind of a good guy.
He's kind of a good
So
guy.
So speaking of, he kicks the chair that they're standing on, but it only rocks and it doesn't tip over. And Regent enjoys Sophia's rush of relief, and then he laughs at her, and he explains to her that he basically fucked up her life, and she has no reason to stay in the city. Her career as a hero isn't looking good either. FYI, I just needed to call out that every time Wildbow uses an acronym, he spells it out phonetically. Um, the last one was also Regent. He said TLDR, and now he's saying FYI. Um,
Painful.
but yeah. So Regent knows he's convinced her to leave town, and he cuffs her behind her back and tells her to keep her mouth shut about his involvement in things. So things don't have to get messy. And if he does regain control of her again, he won't be nearly as generous. He looks outside and sees the flashing lights of a PRT van or police car, and he relinquishes his control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very good chapter.
It was a very surprising chapter to me. I've heard that the Doof Media boys
Mhm.
described it. I think Scott had said that it was his favorite chapter to date when they read it.
Yeah. I think it's definitely one of my favorite interludes because you get so much insight into like Regent's past and like current motives and stuff, you know what I mean? You get like more details about his upbringing, which I always like, and about his worldview, which I always like, and it does like move the story along.
Yeah. I I kind of have different feelings on it. Like I like what it does. I liked it
Hmm.
on first read, but it's one that I don't like to reread. Um
Hmm.
like I it's not like I'll skip it or anything, but like I would
Hmm.
never I think go back and individually listen to this.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't do that for any chapter, so I guess that makes sense though.
Oh, you
I
wouldn't do that for any chapter?
I wouldn't reread any of them out of context.
Okay. I would.
I know, and I know that Duke Media does that. So
Yeah. Um it's just some parts that are really really good.
yeah. Anyways, I really like this chapter. I like the FYI. I like the reveal that Regent is in love with Taylor, even though it never comes up again.
Well, that's all the teasing throughout the book.
Well,
That's
that's
him
what
flirting.
I always felt like, but and
Yeah,
listen,
dork winks,
listen,
sticks tongue out.
I hardship Taylor and Regent. It's true.
Hmm.
Because imagine just how evil they could be together.
I have a question though.
Yes.
This is an important question. If
Okay.
we're pitting ships against each other, or we're putting them
Yes.
in a three-person cage match, maybe. But
Okay.
Regent, Amy, and Taylor. Who should end up with Taylor?
Who should end up with Taylor? Well, it's obviously like a spades and hearts relationship. So
Mm.
the Regent and Taylor is the spades, and then the Taylor and Amy are the hearts.
Do you think
So look,
Amy could
it turned out
really?
fine.
Do you think that she could really deal with that?
What?
The split
No, it's
attention?
totally fine. We're doing full Homestuck troll rules where like nobody gets jealous of the people in the other quadrants.
Wow. Wow, this is quite the
Yeah.
ship. This is like strong shipping.
This is my well, yeah, I always use Homestuck rules for my ships.
Okay, okay.
Even though I don't even think it's a good system, I just think it's funny.
Yeah, yeah.
Um
Oh, it's a terrible
Vale
system, but
said
it is funny.
Vale said that they like to reread chapter 1.1 because it starts with a lie when Taylor says an hour is too long for lunch. It gets me right into the mindset of how unreliable a narrator she is. Do you disagree? You think that lunch should be longer than an hour, Vale? Um, oh no, we're bringing Homestuck into this. Yeah, we won't do it now, but we can definitely do a ship off at some point.
What's a good. We'll talk about it off air, but I don't know what a great point for that would be because we want to get in all the major. We have not seen all of the
I haven't
boys.
seen half of the characters yet.
Yeah.
So it's fine. We'll have to do it like at the end.
Hmm. I think we missed a couple of Greg lines here. Regent is the true edge lord. Sophia's version of convincing reason is please, and at least she's polite. But yeah, anyway.
Vale said Taylor already said she doesn't like Regent though. But Vale, have you read Homestuck? Because if not, then I understand why you would be confused.
Also, like I feel like Regent would grow up to be Marquis, and then
Yeah, and she thinks Marcus is hot.
right now she's like, oh, I don't like pretty boys. Sees the ultimate pretty boy later on, and is like, oh my god, I like this adult pretty boy.
Yeah, what she means is she likes them to have like more muscle definition or whatever, which I feel like Oh my God, Vale said I have not read it. Should I? No.
No,
Don't read
no.
it, but I will explain things at a later date, so that we can get our shipping squares in order.
Yeah,
The thing about Homestuck is there's an alien species and they have kind of like a different like romance system or whatever. Like there's different types of romances or whatever so
yeah,
that you can have like maximum shipping capabilities.
yeah.
But we won't talk about that
It's
now.
so that you can do more with the characters. It's really a way to gamify your own
Your own
thing.
ships, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's very fun.
Um.
Um Okay, I don't know if I have any other final chapter thoughts. Like, we have a lot to say about the characters,
Mm-hmm.
because I kind of tried to keep all the backstory out of the main plot.
Mm-mm. Um. Yeah. I think that's fine. For arc stuff, I was gonna write more, but all I ended up writing was this was the original final chapter of the arc before the donation bonus was reached. So in a way, the chapter coming up is a bit of an intrusion, but this
Hmm.
one I think is a really good capstone to arc 10, which
Yeah.
was like a weird grimy arc where they're doing something bad.
Yeah, and then Regent comes in and does more bad thing.
Yeah.
Um, so Alec as a character, we learn a bit about his dynamic with his family and then like how he views the dynamic with the Undersiders. He basically feels like he basically feels like he is an outsider in the Undersiders, which he doesn't mind, but also does mind. Like he says, like it's good that I have this dynamic with him, and I can't really get close to people because of my emotional problems, and I like it that way. But like it's clear that he does not really like it that way. Um, like it's not that he craves human connection, but he really wishes that he could experience these things like somebody with like normal psychology.
Mm-hmm. And it's weird because he says that there's a disconnect between the way that he feels like their emotions only through their physical reactions.
Hmm.
um so like he clearly must feel something because it feels different to him than like having the physical sensations of fear or whatever, or like having the physical
Yeah.
sensations of happiness, or like he knows
Well,
what that. Yeah, anyway.
I think that he also just was in control of so many people when he was younger that it was like he got to understand what things are supposed to feel like. Um
That's true. So
just
that could
just
sort of
by like
backfill.
Yeah, just by like rules of averages. But also like it does seem he mentions like, well, maybe my power messed me up or maybe it was my dad. And it
Mm-hmm.
probably was both. Like he
Yeah.
probably was more able to like experience emotions and things before his power kicked in and made it so available to him.
I do think
Um
most powers are driven to sort of get the users to use them.
mhm.
But also like, uh, I guess what I mean is I just feel like he must feel something that's like unique to himself that he doesn't feel from other people because it's so declarative that he doesn't feel like his own emotion here. Uh,
Yeah. Well, kind of like Greg mentions, he did definitely have emotions at some point because his dad was inflicting them on him.
mhm.
Um, and then Vale said the people with mental problems related to relationships, Tattletale Regent Imp bitch. The people who are social plus either ripped and handsome or like rips plus handsome, Gru and Taylor.
Oh my
Um,
god.
Burger Burger Master, hello. Welcome in. Um, oh my gosh. So Regent also talks about I'm trying to see if he mentions anything about Taylor right here. Sorry. Just I want to push my Taylor X Regent agenda.
Mm-mm.
So we learn a bit about his family situation. And he tells a specific story where he is fighting with his siblings about like what to watch on TV. And then he like started throwing a tantrum. And his father walks in and just like pumps the like terror emotion into them to, make them shut up and stop throwing a fit. Um, and, this seems like it happened very often where if they were like misbehaving or whatever, their dad wouldn't be like very involved in their upbringing, but like he might be around and just like demolish them with terrible emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's just like he was incredibly like oversaturated with emotions since birth. It's like how, how daredevils can't feel normal unless they're doing like life-threatening sports, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
at least I don't know how true this is, but I've seen studies that they feel like a normal sense of thrill when they're doing that, and everything else is dulled down in comparison.
Yeah. I think that I mean, I've heard the same kind of stuff. I don't know. Like,
Huh.
I'm kind of assuming it's accurate, but
I'm
I don't.
assuming it's accurate.
Yeah. Um, but I wanted to point out like the way that the two sisters reacted when he starts like shouting out is like supposed to be a clear indication that everybody knows like that was about to happen, you know.
Mhm.
And he was just
Yeah,
flipping out to the degree that it was overriding his sense of not getting in
yeah.
his dad's way.
It's definitely a very, very clear representation of emotional abuse, like the most direct. Um,
But Master asks what we are talking about. We're talking about a chapter from the web serial Worm that is chapter 10.x. It's like a bonus chapter ish on a section. I don't know. But it's from the
yeah.
perspective of a major character named Alec, who is pictured here.
Uh, Alec is so good. Another just like little call out I wanted to mention is that I think at one maybe more than once, but Alec will refer to Sophia's of body as his own. I think he says like a tear rolled down his face or something, and then he'll
Yeah,
kind of correct himself afterwards. So he definitely has like issues with like he in his mind or whatever, it's equally his or her body when he is has control over it. He doesn't really like respect the ownership.
right, right. Yeah, he
Um,
really like despite what he says to Taylor, like I think he's more callous about the like autonomy that people have over
mhm.
themselves. He really doesn't care about
Yeah.
that at all.
He super doesn't care. Um, he also, oh man, I just lost my train of thought. Alec taking control of people. Well, I can't remember. We can move on. Do you have anything else to say about Alec? He's got an addiction, obviously, but like good for him for not doing it for
Like a
what, like
year.
2 years or something? A year. Yeah.
Well, it's really unclear how I don't know if he controlled people after he left Montreal but before
Hmm.
Sophia. I don't know if there were
Hmm.
people intervening, but it seems like based on his previous way of doing stuff, it almost seems like he would have had to.
Yeah, he probably was.
Yeah.
Probably like not to the same degree as when he was with the uh what do they call his Heartbreakers crew or whatever. Oh, the other thing I remember what I was gonna say, uh, is that we see him a couple of times like provide fine-tuned power to back to Sophia. So if he was a better person, like this power would he could totally use collaboratively, right? Like he and somebody else without like, well, with or without any kind of powers or whatever, he could provide assistance to them, like take control of their body and then have like partial control over the situation and like let them have fine control over other things.
Yeah,
Or
like
like,
if he was surveying the battlefield, like let's say he's on a building with binoculars and he's looking down at a fist fight between someone he's controlling and well like has the ability to control and somebody else. Like he can, make them pull their fists back to do the comedy punch at the person behind them. You know.
yeah, yeah. This could be a collaborative and consensual experience, but I don't think that it's in his like scope
Possibility
or
space mentally.
mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like in his realm of possibilities because of the person that he is. And it kind of reminds me, I mean, there's a lot of people like that, but Perian especially, like the way that she uses her power is so specific and she like never really develops it any further. Like it could be something else and it could be, I guess it's kind of the opposite because Perian is so anti-violence, and Regent can't think outside of those things.
Yeah, yeah. Burgermaster had said what type of addiction. It's a little hard to explain. This is like a superpowers setting where the superpowers are really tied into the core personalities of the characters and their
Mhm.
mindset. And he can control people's bodies, but then he like feels their sensations and their like not what they think, but all of the hormones and all of the endorphins and just all the different things that they feel on a physical level.
Mhm.
So he can sort of approximate emotions that are buried in his like he is not able to tap into his own emotions very well because of abuse that he suffered from his dad. And while it is super powered within the nature of like the story, it could just have been regular abuse. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Let's see. Vale says if you're serious about Russian, there is a Russian podcast that covers worm. That's great.
Oh, that's pretty lit. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Um, I think that's all I've got to say about Regent right now. He is just a little sad boy who
I think
who
we
doesn't know how to not be evil.
Yeah, I think we got to talk about Sophia for sure.
Mhm.
I think this like I think my feelings on Sophia are more charitable than like almost everyone I've ever heard. Uh,
Yeah, everyone hates Sophia.
um,
Well, Sophia does suck,
and I get
but
it. It's fun to like rag on Shadowstalker and stuff, but like in this situation, it's like clearly so um like bad. Like it's over the line, and it's like this
mhm,
person has sucked and done bad things, but on that metric,
mhm.
like Regent has sucked way worse and done way worse
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
So you can't really
exactly.
like you can't justify this with like the severity of Shadowstalker's actions if you are already like accepting Regent's actions. So
Yeah. So something I think that um I want to point out about Sophia is when he looks through her phone, she doesn't talk to anyone except for her I think her brother. She like texts her brother a couple of times and Emma. Like she does not have anyone in her life.
it is mentioned there are a few texts to Madison.
Oh, really? This is so great from Madison. That's so funny.
Yeah.
She's so
Well, I mean, I wanted to point it out because I just think it shows that the connection between Madison and Sophia is not so ancillary that they're not in each other's phones.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So they do talk to each other, but apart from them or whatever, like there's no other people in Sophia's life. which as a parahuman, you're not necessarily surprised at, but it's the fact that she's like a popular girl, like who has lots of like school friends, but she obviously like doesn't care about them or doesn't want to make like further connections with them.
And she
And
like
then
is
it's like,
clearly interested in like men her own age, but like
yeah.
other like teenagers, but
Mhm.
like she has not like done anything to further that, probably because she doesn't super need to. I think she would be super like transactional and short term in that kind of arena because it's like her whole mindset, the whole predator prey thing, and like all that
Mhm.
weirdness around that would probably leak into her sexuality. So
Probably. Um, yeah, she just doesn't have really any connections. And then we learn like a little bit about, I mean, we talked about it with Vale a bit, but about her trigger event. It seems to be, at least Sophia believes that it was caused by this man named Steven, who is either like her stepdad or her mom's like ex-boyfriend or something. Um, and like that's another hard like factor about this is the fact that whatever was happening with Sophia and Steven, which does seem to be like mental abuse because Regent kind of confirms that it wasn't anything physical, like mental or emotional abuse, but like when she triggered, like she probably I don't know. She's put in the situation where she can like tell on this guy, and if she does, it probably like ruins her family situation. And not only ruins her like mom's relationship with him, but like she will now be a single mom trying to raise like three children or whatever and not have anybody else to depend on. So I don't know. I don't know if Sophia would like care about that kind of thing, but it definitely like makes the situation a lot more difficult if you're
it's
being
at
like
least very
victimized in that.
complicated.
Yeah, it's at least very complicated, and it's just one of those like sad situations where, the mom is saying like, "Oh, I work two jobs for you guys," or whatever. Like she was probably feels like some sort of saltiness towards Sophia about that situation.
Right.
Um,
And I know
you
that
know,
like
it
Sophia doesn't have like some big redemption arc or something, and that she like just, I guess,
she
kind of
kind of
spoilers,
just
but she just kind of
stays the
sucks.
same
But
forever.
like I think that that is because of how they treat her here, not
Yeah,
like that is evidence that they should not put her in jail. Basically,
yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
So
And we also, we see her mom hit her in this chapter, which isn't like she doesn't
it's not
seem
totally
like Regent
unwarranted given the
isn't
situation,
totally
but
unwarranted. Like it is a really extreme situation, but it probably like has happened before to some degree. And Sophia doesn't really seem to have a reaction to it, probably because like she is so accustomed to violence, like in her day to day. It's not a huge deal. And it is like that irony where the mom is like, I don't condone the violence that you do in your job that like you have to have, but she is also enacting violence on Sophia to prove her point.
yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, but things had gotten pretty, like you also said, extreme by that point. Like,
Yeah.
Sophia had already revealed her identity to Terry and was, like, casually tossing around that she didn't care if she went to prison, and
Yeah, and she had been like kind of threatening her mom with like the crossbow and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh boy.
so poor Sophia's mom probably, I don't know, she might suck, but like it's definitely one of those just really complicated situations. Vale said Shadowstalker would have been perfect to add to the Texas PRT that shows up later, all whooping hyped cowboy names and rustling varmints puns. She would have loved it. Oh my God.
I think Sophia
No.
would have hated the teammates, but she actually would have fit in super well. It would have
Yeah,
been
she would
like
have
the
fit
same
in.
department as like Hoyden, and like all these crazy Texan capes who just like love leaping into the fray and shit. They
They
just
just love violence and
it
guns,
really seems
probably.
no, but it really seems like it when you see them like fight echidna later. They just like
Yeah,
three of them are just like, okay, it's us three against echidna.
yeah. We could have definitely. That's the thing. Like we talked about this in Shadowstalker's chapter. Like she could have been redeemed if all of the stars had been aligned and the system was working perfectly. But it's not working perfectly. It's not even working perfectly in the universe. You know what I mean? Like if the system is exactly how it is and then everything worked perfectly, it wouldn't have helped.
Yeah.
um yeah, so, Sophia, rough stuff. Um, and we kind of learned more about like her dynamic with Taylor is maybe more extreme and like direct than we might have thought because I don't know, in the like interaction she has with Taylor, she's like, I don't really care about you. You're just really annoying. But like she actively like saves things in her phone to refer to later so that she can harass Taylor better.
Right,
Like she's
right.
working hard at these things.
I mean, it's pretty fucked. I'm not
No, no,
saying what
no.
she's doing is good. That's not the argument here. But yeah.
Vale says completely agree. She could have been redeemed. She needs freaking therapy and controls. She got the most cursory support and left almost completely on her own. She could have totally been like an arms master type character. Like if she had more like emotional regulation. Um,
There are other people like her who are successful in the PRT. Like I feel like you haven't seen her much because you're not all the way through Ward, but Scenario is one of the
mhm,
characters who they show who used to be the head of like I think PRT Atlanta,
mhm,
but she is like a stone wall and she is like very Sophia-ish in terms of
mhm,
like her antisocial level. It's not like the same pathology. It's just like the it shows me that Sophia may have been able to make a name for herself given her skill as a cape.
mhm.
Because she is pretty skilled. She is very
She
effective.
is. Yeah, Regent thinks she's amazing.
Yeah. So,
It's fine-tuned bod.
God.
He's such like an unintentional creep. Like he wasn't trying to be weird, but he was.
He was he was not trying to be weird.
He just thought it was normal. He's like giving her a compliment. Shadow Stalker would need to have someone she respects, one for therapy and one for leadership. Yeah, for sure. Um, cool.
Yeah.
I think that's all I have to say about Sophia. And like we don't see really any other characters
We do
this
talk to Emma.
chapter.
Emma sees through the deception right away. It doesn't piece together for her.
Yeah, Emma knows that Sophia's not in love with her. She's like, I'm not even close to her type.
Yeah. Um and then I guess we we don't see it happen here, but like it does complicate Taylor's life a little bit later when the texts come home to roost.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was pretty neat of Alec to do that.
Yeah,
I
that
know
first
that
part.
I know that there's unintended consequences
But it's like
of the texts,
yeah,
but like how would he have known? Like I don't think that it would have been reasonable to think that there could have been an effect out of that.
fair, fair.
Yeah. Um
Yeah. It's a pretty indirect attack for what he was
mhm.
doing.
Yeah. Do you want to do the audience participation before the bonus?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, uh while I'm pulling out those answers, do you just want to say anything about his power or what we've learned about the world?
Well, yeah, so his power is definitely a lot more fine-tuned than than it seems seems like it is originally. Like he can give and relinquish control to specific parts of her body or like allow the person to talk if he wanted to. He just chooses not to. Um, the other thing is I feel like we haven't seen anybody physically control another cape yet, but I don't know if you mentioned in the last couple chapters, but it is interesting that uh the powers are definitely directly linked to people's bodies because he is able to utilize her power with pretty much ease. Like it's part of her muscle memory, kind of the way that he can use her power. And it's probably different for different powers and such, but like she's her power isn't more or less strong because somebody else is using it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true. That's true. He has a harder time with some more abstract powers, but for whatever reason, whatever the mechanism in Sophia's like mind it is that allows her to go to shadow state, it works like perfectly because it's just like an
yeah,
on-off switch seemingly.
yeah. Vale says I'm debating saying this because it sounds weird. Fine. I think Alec was being a total creep when he felt up Sophia. If he was just complimenting musculature, he would have touched something else. Yeah, that's fair too. He's just a little piece of shit creep.
I
I know.
think based on what we were talking about earlier, like pre-stream, I do think that I do think that the way that you were talking about it, sort of the slightly more nuanced take is basically that like he's so far removed from things that he doesn't think of this as a creep action.
Yeah, like he just I think when he assumes control over people's bodies, he doesn't think about the fact that he like obviously thinks about the fact that they're in there and everything, but I don't think he thinks about the fact that like anything anything he could do, it could be more violating than other things. Like to him it's like this is mine now and I'm gonna, use it how I normally would.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Vale says, "Oh no, am I the only one who posted a reply to the audience participation? Oh God."
It's okay, we'll talk about it.
So Vale says, "Are Regent's actions justified? I feel it is critical to note that all actions in the story are justified left. This is important to note because bad jokes are part of my core identity. Justified left. Oh, like the whole the adjustment of the page. I see. So now we're left justified text. A technicality to say yes. I'll move on to whether there was a core to his described actions that were justice, a reasonable use of force. Okay, so getting to the heart of the matter here, we've got. So let me think this through and just write my thoughts as I go. This is a villain fighting a villain using powers. Where Regent is doing this to protect himself and his team, Shadowstalker is a villain no matter her label affiliation. And she is and was one the whole time. So use of powers and force to combat her are completely justified. Overall, this method to do this, to terrify her, to force her to leave, is probably the gentlest way he could use his powers to accomplish the goal with near certainty of success. Again, this is justified. He does everything in the entire scene to demonstrate over and over his total control while expressing an almost lazy contempt for her as a person. This is part of his plan to and is justified. Why am I so bothered by it so much? It's because of the non-con. It's horrible, and it paints the entire scene with a not justified in mind. So his actions are aligned with villain power use combat, are done with brutal effect and no permanent harm, but it is still in part an assault that is unjustifiable. Is there a yes no in the question then, or do I cop out and say it's gray? It's both yes and no. It's not gray because, or it's both black and white when specific details are considered and each detail has weight. So I am not saying yes or no. I am saying parts are yes, parts are no. And I don't think it's possible for me personally to do mental gymnastics to combine that answer. Well, my response to this is the texts are justified and then the rest of it's not.
Yeah. Um, I like that Vale always regrets things that they type out because me too. That's how I feel when I make jokes in the script and then William just reads them out verbatim. I'm like, wait, no.
Sometimes I must say, sometimes I know that you don't want me to read them, and I
I know,
still
and then you
do.
do it anyway. And like a lot of the jokes
I
are
can't
just there
help
for
it.
you. They're not to be read, but then they get read and then I'm like, oh
Okay.
no.
Okay, I'll
Um,
do my best to stop. But one
no,
time
no,
I
no,
was
it's
trying to
fine.
skip one for you, and then you called out that I skipped it, and then I was like, "Oh my god, dude, the one
Uh,
time."
No, I'll feel cringe no matter what. Um, Vale, I think that was a good answer. I mean, I agree. Regent did nothing wrong in this scene. But also he did because just the like way that he goes about things is kind of just inherently bad, even if the things that he's doing are like kind of fine.
Yeah, yeah. Greg has just posted just this very moment. I'm willing to believe Alec that Sophia needed a bigger push to not come back and be a problem. Not so sure
Mhm.
about the particulars. The email, sure. Less cool about trying to wreck her relations with Emma and family. Suicide, sure. It feels worse, but in practical terms, it's like threatening to kill them straightforwardly. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, some of the elements could feel less bad on their own, but he already painted her so far into a corner with each step that
Yeah, he
it
could have
kind
just done the
of,
first thing, and it probably would have worked.
yeah. And I mean, I'm thinking of, like, aside from just doing the first thing and it would have worked, like, if the argument is that it needed to be more than the email, he could have done, like, one and three without, ruining the personal relationships, and like potentially having not having her go to jail. Um,
Hmm.
like it's like he throws the full he throws the kitchen sink at him.
Yeah. I also think, I don't know, we learned this chapter that Alec is a bi king, but I do think that
Mm-hmm.
his it does have like weird homophobic
Well, I don't know about anybody
under
else, but I do want to come out as evil. If the by evil connection, then I guess I have to come out as evil. So
Yeah, you always have to do them down to the same sentence. It's literally so funny that it's the same sentence. But yeah, like it is like if he had called, like it's he's supposed to be calling Emma and then I guess his assumption is that Emma would be like disgusted and would be like homophobic about it or whatever. And it seems like that's part of his intention. And then like going through and writing it in the suicide note, like he thinks that including that would, including that Sophia was in love with Emma would like further ruin her life. So that's like kind of a hate crime, but I don't know.
yeah, he is uh he's not the most moral person, let's say.
No,
So
he's not
it
the most
doesn't
moral person.
surprise me that he would,
And the Undersiders as a whole are not the greatest queer allies. I in fact
especially especially Tattletale. Like
I think
Lisa's
Tattletale is the most homophobic character in the story.
I've told you before, she's my problematic fave. And the thing is that she's a non-ally queer. So,
Yeah. She's definitely anti-ally.
yeah.
She outs multiple people, I think, in this just in this book, and I haven't finished Ward yet, but I'm sure more will happen.
And she kind of
Um,
she kind of dead names
yeah,
Sveta
she
too,
dead
like a
names
lot.
people all the time. She dead names Sveta and she dead names Victoria later on. It's
Yeah.
very, very interesting that Tattletale decides to be like the most homophobic character. Um Vale said, "It's almost like cutting out your enemy's eyes when they're already down because they are super strong and you want to make sure they're taken care of." Taylor and Alec would completely friend up about reasonable use of force ideas. Lisa, when is she problematic ever? She just likes to help the truth get out. And then Greg said, when both E88 and the Fallen are in the picture, Lisa isn't the most homophobic, but she's not great. No. Yeah. She's definitely the most homophobic in the Undersiders group, which I do just find to be really funny.
Yeah, I think probably the list would be like Taylor's the least homophobic, then Brian, then it's a toss up between Rachel and Alec.
I was gonna say I feel like Rachel could be
Rachel,
like
okay, so Rachel's
top
fine with
because I
it.
think she doesn't care.
Yeah, Rachel's fine with it, but like
The terrible
she will
ally.
say slurs.
Yeah, that's true.
Like
She
that's
will
part
say
of what I'm
slurs.
saying. Like that's not great.
That's true, that's true. She will say slurs. And Brian is definitely the most sexist out of the
Oh,
group.
he's sexist, but I never get a. I mean, maybe I'm just not seeing it, but I just never see like a homophobic vibe from him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But he's very traditional. Like he believes like in these ideas that he's been fed all his life, and he's kind of coming to challenge them as
Yeah.
he grows
He
up.
kind of like believes in like traditional gender roles. So I know he doesn't really say anything or do anything directly, but I don't know. I feel like in the back of his mind, he's like, I don't know, who's the woman in this relationship?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's probably got that like really antiquated like idea that when there's two like same-gendered people, they have to fall into the standard
Mhm,
duality dynamics that you see in like 1950s heterosexual couples.
mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, like that's a problem for him to overcome.
Yeah. And Regent never overcomes anything. Poor guy.
Well, he's not willing to put in any effort. He needs
He
to put
doesn't
in
want
minimum
to.
effort for maximum
Minimum
reward.
effort for max reward. He's like, you know how I'm gonna get over my homophobia is by having sex with men. Minimum effort, max
Okay,
reward.
I literally know someone who is bi and has sex with, both sides, but is still like the same type of like terrible ally, says slurs, is clearly homophobic. It's
It's
just like,
literally
what the fuck,
Regent.
man? Uh, but yeah,
Um, Vale said Rachel doesn't like getting kissed, but she doesn't care if someone else is doing it. That's not true. Rachel doesn't like getting kissed by strangers, okay? And at that moment,
Taylor.
Taylor was a stranger to her.
Mm.
If Taylor and Brian went out to a nice restaurant for dinner, it would be a fight who gets the door. Taylor would win. Oh, true.
But Taylor likes to be vulnerable with Brian. She likes the idea that she can be girly with him, like when they're together in Arc 7.
Yeah, I think that's why she kind of uh is drawn to like more muscular or like masculine men is because they make her feel more like feminine and ladylike. I don't think it's actually the fact that she's like only attracted to that type of person. It's just because she even said she's like Alec is hot, but not my type.
Because the other thing is, like, later on, like, this is just an example, but, like, Theo is, like, hot from everybody else's perspective, but
Hmm.
Taylor doesn't give a fuck about Theo, even though he's ripped, because she sees
Because
him
he
as a little
doesn't.
boy forever.
Yeah, because he doesn't like give this
She's,
masculine energy that makes Taylor feel more feminine.
yeah,
They would
they're
be
the
like on
same
the same.
age, but she thinks of him like as a protege, as like a kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very sad. I love Taylor and Theo.
Let's see here. So, okay, yes, I added a bonus. I wanted to start talking about the arc titles as we go, and I thought we should catch up on them. Easy
Hmm.
bonus section. So for gestation, we've got a few things here. I've just done bullet point notes, but Taylor has been an egg up to this point and is finally hatching into a tiny caterpillar. So this one to me has obvious links to bugs in terms of the common word usage, but when I looked it up, there's a clash of definitions where like the colloquial term involves bugs gestating, but technically, according to the definition of the word, I guess it's like supposed to have been gestating in a womb to gestate, so bugs don't do that. But that's bullshit. Bugs gestate.
That's bullshit, yeah. They just ate. Wildbow knows best.
Yeah, Taylor's a bug. On a bug insect scale, she's in her transition from bugs to insect right now.
Mm-hmm.
Insinuation. Taylor insinuates herself into the team once the opportunity presents itself. And then I thought it was interesting here. Do you want to read this or this?
Yeah. The like archaic meaning of the word is a slow, winding, worming, or stealing in.
Yeah.
Worm.
Worm.
That's
Um.
crazy.
Here, do you wanna take point on a few of these?
Sure. Then we got agitation. And in this arc, Taylor is definitely like agitating the already volatile situation in the city by tipping the balance of power. And they directly do a lot of agitating to the heroes at the bank robbery.
Yes. Yes. Um. For shell, I had kind of obvious one. Bakuda fires shells at them, and also bugs have shells, and so do
Bugs have
crabs.
shells.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
and Taylor is metaphorically, emotionally coming out of her shell. Hive.
Hive is a good one because Hive is my alternate Skitter name. I just think that's like such a good villain name for her because she's a hive and she gives hives and all that. But
She
you
really
know,
does already use her costume like a hive, but I think
mhm,
if Bonesaw did the bad thing that she says in uh, arc 13 or whatever to Taylor,
mhm.
that'd be a good villain name for her at that point. Hive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, it's obviously like bugs. Bugs live in hives. Bugs give hives. Taylor goes from losing a fight in the enemy hive of the school to winning a fight in the enemy hive of the ABB.
From hive to hive, she's just fighting and fighting. But Tangle, like a spider web, they have been tangled up in all of this since the beginning. The Undersiders finally realize how, you know, enmeshed they are when they meet Coil, and they see how expansive his organization and plans really are. Yeah.
Yeah. The next arc is buzz. There's the media buzz around the revealed identities uh
Of the E88.
of the E88, yeah. And then there's the rumors going around about the Undersiders being responsible for revealing the info. Um, and then William said maybe there's even a connection to the ominous feeling the end of the arc gives. Remind me,
The end of the thing is Miss Militia's thing, which like she feels
oh,
we
yes, yes,
I think
yes.
it's the first time we see a trigger event, I think. So
Yes.
that feels like, oh, what is this? And then there's the Endbringer sirens, like after the
Mhm.
really kind of ominous, because we know the Endbringer sirens are coming, but the conversation between um Arms Master and Dragon and Miss Militia.
Mhm. Vale said insect gestation begins when a female specimen creates an ootheca or an egg case which contains a number of eggs. Hive is a great name for Taylor. I still like my idea of Flitter best if she joined the wars in Arc 1 and was forced to use only butterflies from day one. Yeah, I think Flitter is really good.
What a nightmare. Luckily, if she had
So
joined
cute.
from Arc 1, she wouldn't have had that restriction on her, because that was kind of, it was a punishment test, basically.
Huh.
But yeah, I don't think she would have had to do the butterfly thing. Just not be so outwardly evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She could use cute things. Butterflies.
Ladybugs.
Ladybugs.
That's the Aisha name for her. Ladybug.
Aw, so cute. It's just like Ladybug, the miraculous Ladybug.
Exactly. And
Except
that's what
her
she was
power
trying
has
to evoke
nothing to. Yeah.
back then in
She's a huge
2011.
miraculous fan.
Yeah. Exactly.
Vale said stop using logic to read my head canon. I agree.
Haha.
We can draw some Flitter fan art.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's just gonna be Fluttershy colors.
Oh, whoops.
Basically just Fluttershy
Yeah.
from My Little Pony.
Yeah. But vaguely humanized to Taylor format. So extermination. Leviathan really goes for it. He tries to kill off the whole city.
Yeah, he does a lot of exterminating. Um, Sentinel, I'm no good with this one. I know a sentinel is supposed to be like a type of like military person?
It's like
Question
it's
mark.
like when you're on watch. It can be a verb as well. Like
Okay.
the word sentry.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the same word family.
got it. Okay. But yeah, they're doing this is the Ward's arc or whatever, so they're sentineling.
Yeah.
Doing lots of patrolling and working hard at their 9 to 5 while the Undersiders are busy with their bullshit.
Mm-hmm. And Parasite, I was kind of thinking about it. I didn't write anything down yet because I just wanted to mull it over while we talked through the episode. But it kind of
Hmm.
represents things from the beginning of the arc to the end, but in different ways. Like at the
Hmm.
at the end of arc 9, Skitter uses the idea that she's a parasite to lure in, Sophia, and then they
Hmm.
kind of like, um, they more or less infect Sophia with Alec as a
Yeah, they
parasite.
they're the parasite of Sophia, and then Sophia is the parasite into the wards.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like a changing definition, but it really does like fit very well. But
Yeah.
yeah, um, yeah. I guess that's all I gotta say about all the arc titles. But now we're caught up, and I'm debating whether I'll talk about them at the beginning or at the end of the arc, but I'll just see how I feel when I'm writing the 11-1 and
Mm.
2. Regardless, that'll be fun to do going forward. So for next week's audience participation, we have the how did your viewpoint change on Dragon before and after her chapter? That's going to be our deal. And we did not remember to put an on screen thing, did we? Not at all.
No, we didn't. But we're probably going to start doing on-screen content warnings for when people just jump into the stream. They kind of like know what to expect. So just an FYI,
Yeah.
as they say, FYI.
Yeah, we'll probably put it up after we do the speed draw and after we've kind of shown off the arc for a little bit, or the arc
Mhm.
art, and then I'll just switch to a version of it with the things stamped on it. Or
Yeah.
we'll find some solution.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. Anyway, we're basically done. Do you have anything else to say before I start up the ending music?
No.
Cool, cool, cool. Well, this has been a fun one. Vale says, thanks as always. Content warning? Um, oh, what prompted that? Well, Regent. Really?
Yeah, Regent and his actions. But just in like some specific chapters, there's like a little
There's
bit
some pretty
more like
heinous stuff in this book.
discretion. Yeah, because like I think that a lot of people could stand most of the book, but maybe not stand like the Regent chapter specifically. So yeah, I just if people are like jumping in, like it's kind of good to know what to expect from the discussion.
Yeah, I honestly think we have a friend who would have had a hard time listening to this episode, so.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I am gonna end it off. Thanks everybody for showing up. Goodbye, Greg. Goodbye, Vale, and goodbye for the stream.